guys, Volcano the Bat here, aka JotaroPowered. So, we're back. Patches of 2022. There's not exactly a whole lot to cover today, at least as far as patches go, which is primarily the main reason why I'd also like to cover some mods that released. It might come across as something as minor as just an animation slot, but in my opinion, I do feel it is worth covering. With that said, let's go over all the patches for starters.
Shadow Spin Dash.
So kind of like some of the patches I covered last year, I'm only basing this off of the footage that we've received. So yeah, what we have received does indeed look like a spin dash for Shadow, very similar to that of Pier 6. I'd even go as far as to say the particles even look like they were made for a Shadow spin dash. The thing that I really find impressive about this patch is how you can actually spin dash across walls, areas where you would normally wall run and only wall run, because if you try this with Sonic, it would just cancel it and go into a tripping state and prevent you from spin dashing across. Of course, Pier 6, it's a remake, so you can of course spin dash across, but that's what I find so impressive about this patch. We are in the original, and yet we have got a patch that allows us to spin dash across wall runs, areas where you'd normally run. The only thing that looks like it could be improved upon is the spin kick out of the spin dash. Do this with Sonic, you'll obviously see the momentum from the spin dash carry over to the spin kick. Do this with Shadow with this patch, it just looks like it goes to an idle spin kick. So it looks to me that it just needs to be pointed to the spin kick when you're on the move rather than the idle spin kick. Because otherwise I'd say this is a pretty flawless patch.
3 Spin Kick.
So this one I actually really was not expecting at all. If memory serves, Desko has stated in the past that restoring the E3 spin kick should be impossible. And while I'm not like a huge fan of the idea of the spin kick automatically slowing down regardless of your speed, I am still very glad that this has been recreated. Be it for the sake of recreating the E3 demo, or just in general, to be able to try what the E3 demo did, to document what the E3 demo did. Because I remember trying to get footage from my E3 explanation video and there was frighteningly little footage around of that spin kick. I remember when there was another patch before this that was similar in behavior, trying to slow down the character's spin kick, and I managed to trace the code to affect Shadow as well, so I was pretty confident that if we ever did get an E3 accurate spin kick to slow down, we probably could tell it to also affect Shadow, and well, sure enough, this patch does also affect Shadow. Again, I'm not like a big super fan of this patch, I can totally see why they changed this. I'm just grateful that we do have something from the E3 demo recreated, and quite flawlessly. With that said, as far as 06 enhances and fixes go in the original, I'm always open to the idea of being able to release the analog upon spin kicking and that causing the spin kick to slow down. Again, similar to that of how Pier 6 has handled it. I'm not sure if that is what they wanted to achieve, but still, can't help but wonder.
Demo camera.
More like trailer camera, holy cow. I wish I recorded my reaction to when we got this because I could not stop laughing to how ridiculous it is the fact that this camera was even left in the first place in the code. Like, I mean, is there any more red flags to indicate that, hey, this is kind of a prototype and not what they intended to release? Sheesh. This is so insane to me that, like, they really did leave so much in. It really is just becoming more apparent that this very clearly is not supposed to be the game that was meant to be released. And like the simple fact that they removed a lot of this stuff in the PS3 version, being a version of the game that came later, giving them time to remove elements, even fix small elements. I'm telling you, man. This is a prototype. Like, for real, if this much can be achieved, then, you know, free camera exploration, leaving Sonic idle, I believe that's possible now. I believe a full skybox rotation and lighting progression in real time can be achieved, like cycling it manually. I was already mildly convinced that we could probably get it from debug mode to Sonic and Sonic to debug mode, but now after this it's like, yeah, well, what more can we break? What more secrets can we find from this never-ending rabbit hole of stuff that we can find in the game that's unused, left in, left over? But man, I don't even know what to say anymore. Obviously, having something like this, it's not going to fix the game by having it, but even so, just knowing that we can frickin' play the game with the camera settings and controls that, you know, those that Sonic Team had and were using to literally create the trailer clips for the game. Enough said.
Day-night cycle.
So for better or worse, this kind of is starting to turn into a bit of a pattern where we are seeing patches, but the patches itself aren't actually released. So like Shadow Spin Kick, I can only base this off of the videos that we've seen. And based off of what we have seen, yeah, it does look pretty damn flawless. It certainly does have a progression, that's for sure. I'm not sure if the intention here is to make it as accurate to the tech demo, or if it's just to get any form of progression. Because if we are going for accuracy, I'd say maybe the lighting could be a bit tweaked here and there, for say dusk or nighttime. But if we're just going for the progression, then yeah, it has been achieved. I wish I could say more, but again, it's hard to say because I haven't tried it, because it hasn't been released.
Fixed shields.
So like, not only does the unused green shield take damage in a way where you not only have invincibility frames when you take damage, but you also fall over like you would normally if you didn't have a shield on.
But wait, there's more.
No, not just that, but it also applies to the yellow gem shield.
But wait, there's more.
Go back to the green shield. Collecting that item box now plays the original sound effect that it was supposed to play.
But wait, there's even more.
If you get the gauge up item box, that too also plays its sound it was supposed to play. What's happening? This is almost scaring me how much is being done. This is really happening. The game is literally being fixed yearly. Like at this rate, we can probably create custom item boxes, like, I don't know, for example, getting the best of both worlds with the 1-ups, having the E3 version and the retail version, and creating a difference between the two, because, say with the texture in E3, it has 2 arrows, making that a 2-up instead of a 1-up, and the retail a 1-up. I'm really, like, dead serious. We could probably do that if we really wanted to. And I don't know, maybe I'm just getting ahead of myself because of how much stuff that was originally intended is being restored. But like seriously, this is just insane. I am struggling to think of like major things that need to be improved upon as far as what the original was intending to achieve. Like really, homing smash and Silver's speed up upgrade is really all that comes to mind. I've heard people mention the maturity for Shadow and maybe having the purple gem grow and shrink, if that's even going to affect the hitbox. And maybe a blue gem that could do damage. Yeah, sure, there's plenty of like demo states that could be implemented to the retail version. But aside from them being very unfinished and very minor, like I said, I'm trying to think of something major here. And okay, I view the demo states as something major, but I'm talking about the majority here. Actually, I had to think about it for like a seriously long time. But no, seriously. The only major thing I could think of that could be achieved, as far as patches go, is restoring the element where you would be able to, well, in Blaze's words,
use my power. Press the Y button to wrap me in flames. If you use your psychokinesis to grab me, you should be able to launch a powerful attack. I'll go all out too. Use my flames as much as you want.
Like, I'll have to double check this, but I don't recall ever seeing an unused animation to convey that they were cooperating together. Yeah, I don't recall some kind of collaborative animation. Then again, I didn't put them together, but from what I remember, I don't recall running into anything, but again, I'll have to double check that. But yeah, I have no idea how much of that code could potentially still be there, unused, but really that is like the only major thing that comes to mind, and it may very well not even be restorable. It might just be a case of, hey, we need to create the custom code ourselves, and you know, by the time Silver's release will drop, I'm sure PO6 will have it if it's not going to be intertwined with the bosses.
You have to use my power to stop it before it's fired, or use your power to grab it. Ha! My flame can penetrate anything!
Back on topic though, it's really satisfying to have objects behaving the way they were supposed to as far as the sound design goes. It's very gratifying. But even for the shield's behavior to actually bounce back when you take damage, that could have been as simple as, you know, bounce back, and as soon as you get up, you're fine. You know, kind of like Max Beat Sonic, it's like animation specific. But the fact that, even more than that, we've got the invincibility frames afterward is just, it is flawless. And to demonstrate my point even further, I'm going to steer you guys to the usage of the yellow gem in the It's No Use boss battle. I never really used the yellow gem in this boss for so many years, because for one thing, you don't have the yellow gem in the story when you're going through this, or even know how to use gems. But even when you get gems and go into this boss, you don't think to use it. It's not like a natural thing that you think, oh yeah, well that will work. But let's suppose that you're really wanting to experiment with the gems in the boss. If you use the yellow gem in this boss, you get it's no use, you get thrown. What happens? You lose your shield, but you still take damage. Even though I knew it did nothing. I thought for the sake of this video I would test it out in at least a few stages. And to my surprise, if you use the yellow gem now in the silver boss, and you get thrown, you lose your shield, and oh snap, you don't lose your rings, you don't take damage. Wow, the boss battle is actually interesting now. Like, with this patch, I'd go as far as to say, hey, let's start putting some shield item boxes in the boss. That is how big of a difference this is making to this boss alone. So the fact that this applies to not just the normal shield, but even the yellow gem, it's like, oh man. I don't know what to say. I am very impressed with this one. I hope now that invincibility states can be tampered with in the way they have with these power-ups, I'm hoping that perhaps the snowboard gameplay and Mark Speed Sonic's invincibility frames could be looked into a little bit, because, yeah, they probably need more work than anything right now. Because, yeah, you don't have invincibility frames as soon as your animation ends for both characters. Even after the damage animation plays, it should still have a bit of invincibility frames even after that state is finished. But yeah, after this yellow gem and normal shield patch, having invincibility frames after that, I'm certain something similar could be achieved for giving it to Mark Speed Sonic and Snowboard Sonic.
E3 loading screen.
Okay, this was very unexpected. Not only is it the Xbox Live Arcade version ported to retail, but it even does something that the Xbox Live Arcade version doesn't do. And that's actually using the mission logo, the one from E3, because instead, it actually uses text in the Xbox Live Arcade demo. So to see the E3 accurate mission, including the rest of it, just within the retail build, is pretty darn impressive. I just wish that we got all the logos for the stages in the E3 style, because the only versions we got with the Chara font are just the Kingdom Valley and Crisis City logos, the ones from E3. But even then, the ones we received were technically used for the results screen on that stripy box, because otherwise the bigger scaled and better quality versions, the ones that were actually used in the loading screens, were never found in the files that we have received. At best, we could put in place the unused stage logos that were found in the Xbox Live Arcade files, which pretty much is how the E3 demo did handle the logos. The only real difference here is that it's a different font. The thing I really like about this is it's not just placed the sprites on screen, it literally has the opening animation for it as you enter a stage, not to mention the animation of the bars above and below the stage logo. My only minor critique is that, like the opening animation, this doesn't actually have the closing animation that E3 has. Well, I say closing, but really it's more like another opening animation. So I mean, really look at E3, the sprites really do separate as if it's opening up to gameplay as the background fades in. But here, instead it kind of just vanishes into the black screen as it fades into gameplay. I mean, don't get me wrong, it certainly does work the way it is. It'd just be nice if we could eventually get it to be even more E3 accurate. Still, in the meantime, I'm quite fine with what we have received.
Mission completed.
Okay, for real, holy crap. To clarify, there were absolutely no sprites at all whatsoever in the retail files unused, nor the Xbox Live Arcade demo files unused. The sprite work is rebuilt from the ground up, and the animation is rebuilt from the ground up. So with that said, to have it this accurate, like, forgive me for freaking out, but this is freaking amazing. PO6, while I can never stop praising that, in all fairness, compared to retail, compared to the original, we are comparing it to a fan game that's being developed in Unity, something that has a lot more freedom, and because of which, a much easier range to recreate things, even to the quality of it being considered flawless. But to do that on the original game, now, this is something I'm very, very surprised about, and can only say I have great respects for what went into the recreation of this sprite mod. From what I can gather with how the original E3 demo used the original mission completed screen, It appears to have been its own sprite file, because as I'm sure a lot of you guys already know, at the end of a stage when you go and touch the goal ring, gameplay would actually freeze as you touch the ring and you'd hear the sound. Then of course as it unfreezes it does load in the result screen and all the sprites and stuff. Now compare this to E3, that lag is gone as soon as you touch the goal ring because it now plays the mission completed screen. Does that mean the lag is completely gone? No, the lag does actually still occur right before it loads all the result screen stuff. So long story short, the lag before the result screen is to do with the result screen only, which is basically why it lags in both E3 and retail, of course just taking place at different times. This is why it leads me to believe that if we ever were to receive the E3 demo and look at its files, I do strongly believe that the original mission completed sprites have its own file, or XNCP to be specific, an XNCP separate to the result screen. With all that said, I have no idea if this is possible to somehow copy all this data to its own custom and new XNCP file and tell that to basically, play that before the result screen as you touch the goal ring. Because if we do compare this recreation to the real deal, we can still see that it still does have the lag as you touch the goal ring as opposed to E3 not having a lag when you touch the goal ring. Of course this really isn't an issue at all, I'm only really pointing it out for documenting purposes so we know the differences, be it E3, retail, or the mod. And speaking of differences, because of what I just pointed out, with the flawless recreation of the mission completed animation being a part of the result screen XNCP file, as a result, this does actually have the first window sound of the result screen playing as the mission completed animation plays, instead of for the first window that's brought up, and because of which, as a result, that window now has no sound, since it's already played earlier. When in E3, I'm almost certain that there is absolutely no result sounds in the mission completed, mainly because the goal ring sound is supposed to be played over the mission completed. With that all said, does that affect the animation recreation and how flawless it is? No, absolutely not. On the contrary, I'd love to see more. I'd love to see if it's possible to get the retail font version that's in PR6 implemented to the original, or even the Town Mission version. But seriously, just because the lag doesn't take place the way it does in E3, and just because a sound plays earlier rather later, all because it's not a separate file, really does not affect this mod at all. I'm still absolutely blown away that we do actually have this in the original, be it the demo or retail.
The mega hover animation.
Okay, low-key, I'm starting to get a little that some out there are starting to think that this, specifically this, is just a PR6 animation ported to retail when no, it's in the retail files, like everything. To an extent, I can kind of see why, because it's like, well, you know, PR6 did it first, and, you know, PR6 has custom animations. And I think this is why people want an animation customization for those that aren't a fan for the custom animations and want just the retail and unused retail animations. But yes, this Omega hovering animation is in fact an animation that was supposed to play for Omega when hovering in the original. So naturally I'm godsmacked that we have this in the original, it's friggin' amazing. I'm hoping something similar could be done for Sonic's homing recovery animation, transitioning from the homing after state to the falling state or falling animation. Because if you check the boss's animations, both Sonic and Shadow, after doing homing flip, do transition from their recovery animation to the falling animation, and I believe even Sonic Next did this for Sonic. Hashtag PR6 win? Yeah, hopefully in the same way this slot was enabled for Omega. Yeah, hopefully something could be done for both Sonic and Shadow, or even the rest of the homing type characters, be it Blaze or Knuckles.
Silver top run animation. ESP shader state.
Speaking of Pure 6, let's actually go. For the longest time I had the teleport dash animation playing for this state, and oh my. I knew it sucked, you guys knew it sucked, and there was nothing I could do about it.
And there's nothing you can do about it.
And then PR6 came along and was like, hey, you guys remember Generations? Well, you know, here, play as it. Play it, use it. And I was like, oh, that's great, because it's on the original model and we have no way to put it in the original. Great. But now, thankfully, we have it in the original. Which, oh man, I am so glad about this one. But I always distinctly remember thinking or imagining, like, what if we did actually get the animation ported to the original? What would happen? Because, like, really, it's one thing to enable an extra slot, and believe me, that's a big one thing, but it's another when you already have an extra slot, but your animation is being played twice. So, in a sense, thankfully, Silver does have the same animation play twice for both a jogging animation and the top running animation. Many believe this is where the running speed increase upgrade that was planned for Silver would have come into play, giving him his own top run animation, and of course speed as well.
I mean, the fact that, you know, Jens even uses the unused sound that Silver has in the 06 files, and also has a bit of a hover animation when he's close to the ground, you know.
Which is why, for the longest time, imagining this PR6 animation in the original, while sounded great and all in theory, I could see exactly what we got as far as we got the animation, but we wouldn't have the ESP psychokinesis shader applied to the run state in animation. And for some time that was the case. But you know what, it didn't really bother me as much as I think it did others. Just the mere presence of the animation in the original was enough to make me go, well, at least it looks a million times better than how it was, where Silver was almost clipping into the ground with that animation that I had before. So, to know that we are at a level of modding where we can actually tell the freaking game to apply the shader to that state and animation, like, that is unbelievable to me. I was not expecting that at all. I was ready to say, no, that probably will never happen. And I think the reason why I felt this way was that it would almost have to behave as a type of glur, something that wouldn't affect when Silver does his psychokinesis, be it grabbing an object or preparing to do like a slap or a stun, because I was fearful if that were to happen, it would like almost double the layer of the ESP shader, thus making Silver like glur even more so and making it look a bit weird because of how bright it is. But for one thing, it doesn't even noticeably do that. But even more than that, custom Silver models that don't have the shading programmed into the XNO model can and will appear on the model, because it basically bypasses what the model says which shaders it can and can't use. And like I said, this is like a level of modding that makes me believe now that we can definitely recreate the E3 hint shader, just based on the premise that this much could be achieved. So yeah, not only do we have the PR6 animation ported to retail, but we've even gone as far as to tell the game, hey, enable the psychokinesis shader on this state. And I mean, that's just freaking unbelievable. And some people even said, okay, but what about the sound effects for running? Because there's still the footsteps there, so, you know, what's the deal there? It's almost like the first few mods that existed for 06 with the super mod, where you'd have the footsteps playing for a flying animation with the supers. And lo and behold, there's also a way to get rid of those sound effects too. So it's like, whoa, we have done like 3 freaking huge milestones here, and I'm losing my mind that all of this stuff has happened within a year, within 6 months, you know, like this is insane. I am convinced that the E3 hint shader can be recreated with its glow, especially looking into how the shaders affect the keys when you collect them and how that kind of makes it look like the E3 hint shader glow. Now this is just speculation, but I do have a theory that this sound effect that is unused 06 was intended to be used for the speed up upgrade. With that said, I'm not really sure if we should implement this sound for this, having it sort of behave as a type of, almost like the tail sound when you reach top speed, likewise Omega. Because at least that would be some form of sound, I guess, when you get to top speed. I don't know, the name of the sound is PSI Move, Psychokinesis Move. I don't know, what do you guys think? Let me know down below. Seriously, big props to everyone involved with this mod, I am speechless.
Treasure hunting radar.
So this was very unexpected. To my understanding, this is not a patch. This is just as simple as telling the sprite work, hey, you know this object? Yeah, like, kind of glow when you get closer to that. Huh. It really is just as simple as switching it between a grey key sprite, a yellow when you get mildly close, and a red when you're super duper close. I haven't actually gotten a chance to install this to P25 yet. Yeah, I'd very much like to. I don't know if I missed the file when it dropped or what, but for that reason I am only basing this off of the footage that I have seen. Yeah, the fact that we are yet again another step closer to an SA game, something that essentially is becoming more and more like in SA3. And while, to my knowledge, there were no plans, no noticeable, evident plans of them wanting to implement a radar, I'm still certain that, you know, had they had the time, postponed the game, I'm certain that they would have implemented it. But it is a bit strange that, again, from what I've seen, there was no signs that they were looking into doing this. But then, you know, rushed game's a rushed game. Only thing I will critique with this mod is it would be great if in the future we could somehow get the silver and shadow character gradients to affect the radar box, because at the moment it just sticks with the Sonic style gradient. Very minor, doesn't need to be done, but it'd be great if possible. And with that, we're up to date for 2023. Bit of a shorter video in comparison to last year.
But you know, that's kind of what happens when I do full demo main menu coverage, so... whew.
With that said, I thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed and had a wonderful Christmas. Big thank you to everyone that's contributed to patching and modding 06 to be a better, more enjoyable game. Same for you guys that support the work that goes into it. Let me know what you guys are hanging out for next year's patches. And yeah, till next time, have a good one, stay safe. And yeah, I'll see you all next time. Peace.